Hello team, welcome back. Day 7 for our AnyAUT certified tester training. Welcome back. Sorry about yesterday, just couldn't do it and had to inform my team a little late that I won't be able to do while I tried. But then we're back now. We need a couple more sessions after this team because there's still a lot to cover as per what we initially planned. So we've extended for Monday and Tuesday as well. And thank you everyone for the concern. I'm doing pretty well and all's good. All right, great. So there are a lot of things that we've been going through over the last few days, and we've been going much deeper into some of these areas, especially the IDE basics and element identification. This is a topic which is very critical for automation. Any automation tool, be it HP UFT, which was earlier called QTP, or Selenium, which do functional regression testing, is the same logics that apply. And we'll also look at the UFT basics in the coming week, how it looks and so on. But this is very important, Selenium ID basics and element identification. What I also did show in previous session was how we take a script from Selenium IDE and convert that into a Java JUnit or a Ruby on Rails code or any other code that the Selenium programming supports. So this is where the core functionality is, team. Knowing Selenium IDE is absolutely not sufficient. It is only the starting point of a long journey with automation. All right. So when it comes to going into more in-depth script level, it gives you more power, flexibility, and control. And that is the reason you need to really master that. And in today's market, people are talking about being a Selenium developer, not a Selenium tester. They want you to know the coding behind it. So either you know the coding behind it or you know some powerful automation frameworks in a good way. Now I am assuming, team, all of you have seen the videos for the all about automation frameworks. Let me quickly make sure I run it as a poll so I know it. And have you also seen the XPath? How we do the element identification using XPath? So either you've seen it or no. So just two options. Oh, it's already there, the question. So let me quickly launch this. Please let me know the screen, team. You should, team, because if you don't, then there's a lot that you're missing out. These concepts are heavy. It will always help for us to realize what they are. I will be going through them today once again, but may not spend the complete hour for it. Maybe about half an hour we'll do on it, and then we'll go about with very focused onto AnyAUT. Right? Okay, so we've got votes in. I'm just going to quickly close this. So 14% of you have not seen it, team. And that means it's a small community which has not seen it. But at the same time, you'll be missing out on those concepts. You have to go back and watch them and then come back to watch this video again. It'll be very clear. But let me give you a summary either way. All right, back to my screen, and I'm putting this thing on. Are you able to see my screen, team? Not yet, I guess. Is my voice breaking for anyone? Not anyone, but for all of you. Do you have an issue with the voice? It's breaking, is it? Give me a minute, let me check. How about now? It's good? Okay, great. So what are these automation frameworks and why are they needed, team? And there's no English definition in it. It's more of a concept. Automation frameworks is more like a structure. It's like a skeleton that helps to implement an automation project more easy with higher ERA. That is what it does, team. This is what an automation framework does. All right. So if we need to do this, there is a specific standard that we need to follow. And they have been created. Why have they needed? Same question. They were created organically based on a need for the end user. Who is the end user in this case, team? End user of a framework. Who uses them? The QA engineers, which is manual. Can they use it? Automation engineers. Then you have the QA leads / management, and sometimes even the developers, BAs, and the UAT or business users. They would also like to use this. My voice is breaking again, team. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me connect to my audio through phone, then it should not break. Or let me switch the network. I'm switching, team. I'm switching to the phone, so give me a minute. Is also important, team. Now, the typical automation scripts or programs are, number one, code intensive. So there's a lot of coding. Only understood by the developers / automation engineers. The non-automation engineers cannot use, run, or maintain them. And that kind of puts a block. And in a usual QA environment or project teams, we have about 20% of the workforce in automation. So there is a huge need for the remaining 80% to involve into automation. And that is why these frameworks tend to give that. One of the most simplest frameworks, team, that you can look at is more of data-driven framework. This is one framework. Then we have keyword-driven framework. And then we have, we can also call it the page object or page factory. And do note, team, sometimes the version of these changes. When I say version, different people try and treat it differently. But the core concept is going to be the same. Let's go through each of them. Then there are other frameworks like functional decomposition and so on. That is a very common thing. All right. Nothing much about this. Now, one of the first questions that I have before I go on, team, is to be an AnyAUT certified test engineer, do you need to be good in programming? Yeah, we have linear also, that's true. And then, which is all these very simple ones, which will not touch right now, but you'll find it in the other video. So the question again, team, to be an Selenium, AnyAUT certified tester, do you need to know programming well? No, you don't. That's the whole point. To be an AnyAUT certified developer, you need to know this. Okay. So these frameworks, let's talk about them very briefly. How they are created, why they were created, and so on. And it is always easy for us to relate with an example. Let's talk about testing, team. A lot of times there is a test that needs to be performed. All right. This specific box, let's say, has those steps or scenarios that need to be performed on a given application. Now, these applications sometimes, it's more like a single test case, let's say test case 1. This needs to be bombarded with different sets of data to see how the output is. So, we send input to it as test data, and we look at the output in terms of the result, pass or fail. What do we mean by this thing? Simplest example is, let's say we develop a new car. Okay. So when we develop a new car, they put it into this testing tracks where the rider is driving it at a different combination. Let's say they're going at 30 miles per hour and they want to see what is the output, what is the RPM, and how much is the fuel consumption. And the same thing, they will do it at 40, 50, all the way to, let's say, 100, and see how the vehicle performs. Fuel consumption is one expected output. And then they know that at the end, when the actual user drives it, they know exactly how it is expected to run. And they want to create the scenario before they put it into production. Every car, every automobile company, automated company comes up with these tests that have to be performed because they keep on developing new versions. Sometimes they increase the engine capacity, reduce the horsepower, and try and do it. So this is one portion of it, like speed test, to see where it is. Then they'll also do crash test. How is it performing on different speeds, and when it crashes into something head on, and so on. So they basically will have to build a table where they say something like a test data. Okay. For anyone else, my voice is not clear. So I'll just speed and fuel consumption. Okay. It's clear, right? For any of you, it's not. Maybe it's at your end, team. So here I will say it's giving 19 miles per gallon. At 40, it is giving 20. And then 60, it is giving 25. And then 70, it is giving 23. And then 80, it drops down again to 18 and so on. This is the test that they're conducting and they expect this to happen. Okay. It is as simple as, it's not definitely as simple as this in the real world, but they'll have so many parameters to test. And for each of them, they want to do pass or fail, right? Now, what can they do? They can put it on the track and they can run it, correct? The alternate is they will not put it on the actual track. They will not use an actual driver. They will rather put it on a kind of a treadmill for the car, where it's just stationary on the same place, but it's still running. The tires are turning. And then they want to see how it is done. So they're saving time. They're able to actually control it. A human error will not be made. So is the driver going at 30 or 31? We don't know. So those minute corrections can be there. So there's an increase in accuracy. Instead of a human doing it, if they do it through a machine, like a treadmill for the car, there's an increase in accuracy. There is also efficiency improvement because they can do many more tests quickly and they don't have to use the human behind it, and they can keep conducting it as and when they want. So there's a lot of reusability. So ERA increases when we move from manual to automation using a framework. So testing a specific scenario with varied sets of data, we call it as a data-driven framework. Now, similarly, I can have also the same thing. Think about some more examples, team. Once you can relate with examples, things will become easy. Let's say you create your new system should give the values. So before you let users work on it, you want to make sure that the formula, everything is correct. And that is very important. All right. So taking a test and using data, different sets of data to drive the test is called a data-driven framework. When it comes to automation, what happens is we teach Selenium to do this automatically. How do we teach Selenium to do it? Very simple thing. So we have a Selenium code. So this code is your WebDriver code team. No longer your IDE can do all of this. You write a code in Selenium WebDriver. This works with the application under test. And the data is put in an external place called Excel. Or it could be an XML. Or it could be a database like SQL, MySQL, and so on. Okay, so it could be anywhere. How can we do this? So first, if the data is here, I need to teach my script to read this data from this Excel or any source into the code. Then we take this data and put it into the application and the test. See how the application is behaving. Get that back here, output, and then update the Excel if it passed or it failed for that. This automatic code is what we call as a data-driven framework. In this case, it is just taking the data. Now, when it comes to this automation testing and using Selenium or qtp, we're talking about this kind of a structure. But I also told you that there should be a way that manual testers should be able to do it, correct? Can manual testers use this thing? If I didn't have a data-driven framework, then the whole code has the data is something called as hard-coded in here. So if I need to change the data, I have to go and change it. So now
manual testers can go and maintain the data and say, run this data, here is a new set of data, and they're able to get the results back. All they need to do is use this code and execute with different sets of data. So instead of automation engineers come, tomorrow a manual test engineer will come and say that this is a test data ID, will give it uniquely, and I will also say execute yes or no. There could be hundreds of set of data. So I can be a manual tester who comes in here and selects which one. I'm saying that I don't want all of this, TD002 and so on, TD004. They'll say that I have a new set of data, TD005, and yes, I want to execute this. This is for 41.1. What is the Celsius value? Similarly, I'll create a few more. Okay, so just assume I'm changing all of this team, and each time this equals this plus 0.1. Now a manual test engineer can come in and do these changes and decide if they want to execute or not, and that is where they're able to involve. But if tomorrow the scenario changes, you have to make it change at the code level. Okay, so in a very simple fashion, a data-driven framework execute a scenario. When I said scenario, or it's also a test case team. For multiple sets of test data, a driver code reads the input Excel/database/XML/text file containing the data. Selenium WebDriver then runs it on the application of the test, gets the result back, and puts that into the output file. And this way, non-automation engineers can maintain and run the test by changing the data. So that is where efficiency comes. The only drawback to this is that while coding of it is not that complex, any change to the scenario/test case, can the manual engineers do anything on it? No. Needs a code level change that has to be performed by a developer/automation engineers. That's a small drawback. But otherwise, there's a lot of efficiency, there's a lot of advantage for such a framework team. Okay, everyone. Now, when it comes to keyword-driven framework, what does it do? What this basically says is, it's a very simple concept team. You all understood data-driven framework? Any questions on that I can handle, please? In data-driven, manual tester can do it, his her participation will be more. Correct. This is your data-driven framework. Okay, sorry, written that. Load testing, okay. So primarily it's not load testing. Load testing is a part of the question team of this data-driven framework. It is not considered for load testing. You can always test and see in this same thing, time taken for this test. How long did it take for it to run? But it is not testing. What happens in there's two types of performance testing team, stress and load. Okay. So what that means is you try and bombard the application with a lot of parallel users logging in at the same time, and also looking at how is the efficiency of it when you're running a series of things one after the other. So Selenium and UFT have not been built to do performance testing, while you can capture the amount of time taken. There's only one drawback mainly, like I said, any change to the scenario, test case needs a code level change that has to be performed. Now, I don't know if I have a sample code that I can show you easily of any of this. Let me see. This BMI calculator, body mass index, open archive. Let's see something here. Open. Okay. Can you see this code team? This is sample data-driven framework code from a previous training. Here we go about doing the packages and imports of the specific files that are required. Then we start with the main code. We say where is that? This is for the Chrome driver. Then we have to start with definitely where is that Excel located and where should the results go. And then there is this read Excel function that is written, which will read the entire Excel sheet into a two-dimensional array. And then in the main code, this two-dimensional array is navigated one row at a time. It will see if it is ready for execution. It will get all the information. In this case, this is a BMI calculator. If I get the URL, the gender, the age, feet, inches, weight, and the expected BMI and expected state, like obese or normal or healthy and so on, this is the input. And then we have another function created called input this test data into the application, calculate the result. If it is not ready for execution, it is skipping. So giving a very quick overview team of how the code is. This code, to write this code took me about 5 sessions with the team. If I just go about in a simple way saying that this is the code and go line by line, everyone don't understand, especially ones who are new to programming and who are not typical developers. So what I do is I take 5 days to write this amount of code to show you how we do it one by one. How to write a function, what is the basic code, how do we then use inputs, what is a for loop, what is an if statement, how do we navigate through it, all of them. By the end of the 4-5 sessions, you master data-driven framework. Okay, and then you can apply to any framework, any application after that, and see how you can do it. So to calculate results, we have a function, how it verifies and calculates. To input test data into the application under test, we have created another function. So we do it in a very step-by-step manner, team. So to look at this code and understand is never easy. It's never simple. And then we have to read the Excel, we have function. To write the Excel, we have function. This is how a simple data-driven framework code looks. Okay. So if tomorrow in this application, for example, the user, there is a new thing that's come up, okay, for BMI, because I don't know, I can't think of it, but maybe let's visualize that different countries have different BMI expectations. Are you higher than the normal average in the country you're living in or not? What they have to do, they have to come here, change it here, change it in the code, do all that. That can't be done in your framework. That is your data-driven framework team. And like I said, to really understand how to build it, we need about 3-4 sessions at least. We start with an empty code and then we go about building from there. All right. Now, what is keyword-driven framework and what is the concept behind it? Let's take a very quick look. The whole idea is that every test case, what does it contain, team? It contains multiple steps, right? What is each step? Each step is nothing but an user action. User performs some kind of an activity, and that action is performed on the application. Like what? They open the browser, they navigate to a specific URL, they close the browser, or they click on an element, or they type text into a field, or they select something from a drop-down list, they click on a radio button, they get the details of an image, and so on. So these are very frequently used reusable actions, right? And what we said, each of this, we will build it as a reusable keyword. For everything, we will write a function and keep it ready. And that way, the whole focus is, can I write this test case in the Excel itself? So what if I write a simple user login, for example, okay? So we say open browser, then we say enter first user, enter text, then again we have to enter text or type text for password, then we click button, and then we verify text that yes, we have logged in. Then again we click button for logout, and then we will close browser. So these are the steps for a specific test case team. Oops. So this is, let's say this is test case 001. Okay. Or I'll say, for example, interact underscore user underscore login. This is the name of the test case. I'll call this as test case ID. This is the keyword that is used. And for this keyword, I may require test data that I'll enter here. I may also require element identification. So what is the step details? You can write here. Open application under test, enter username, enter password, click on login, verify user has logged in, log out. This can be maybe click link instead of a button. And then close the browser. Now, this is English. These are reusable components that have been pre-written in the code. And then let's assume this to be manual test case for now. Let us not even think that this is an automation test case. So test data, do we require here? Yes, we need the application URL. So I'll say interact.com/app. Any element identification that is needed to open a browser? No, but maybe we'll say we're doing it in Chrome. So to enter text, I need to put something there. What will I put? I'll say Karthik, that is the username. Okay. How do I identify that? I have to go back to this element. interact.com/app. And I right click here, and say inspect element with Firebug. Look at the details. So input ID equals user underscore login. So I'll write this is the XPath // input at ID equals single quotes user underscore login. Right. Now this is how we identify that specific element. Similarly, for the password, let's say the password is 123 $. I copy this basic as is, put it here, inspect the next element, inspect element with Firebug, and this is user underscore pass. and so on. Let me not finish it for all of them, team, but you understand the point, correct? What we're doing. So we typically write this here. One of the first levels of automation that people do is like this, team. Let me write it somewhere so it's easy for you. Automation steps, levels, right? Okay. First one is record and run in Selenium IDE. 2 is you write and run in Selenium IDE. 3, write in Selenium IDE, export to programming Selenium WebDriver, run from the development IDE. What does IDE stand for, team? Did I mention this earlier? If it is Java and so on, you use Eclipse, which is a free tool. If it is C# and so on, you have to use Visual Studios and so on. Yes, IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. Nothing but a simple place where users or developers can write the code, debug and execute the code. That is what it is called. The fourth step is to write the scenario directly in Selenium WebDriver. Okay, run there. So how you go about levels of automation, where you start from and what do you do. So what we did is these two things, team. We didn't do this. Fifth one is to create frameworks, automation framework. So this is what levels you can get to. 6 is you can do a lot of other things, parallel, cross-browser, distributed or grid runs. You can do continuous integration. There's a bunch of stuff you could do from there on. All right. So what you're seeing right now is very simple that we wrote out here code. So you can go after looking at the steps and perform it in any of these ways. Right. So now what we're saying is, can we write a code that can come open this Excel, go line by line, understand what needs to be performed and execute that on the application? Is it possible for us to do that? So this is more like test cases, okay? And this is, let's say, test data, the other sheet. And that is where a smarter script is coming to. And that becomes another keyword-driven framework driver script. It goes through this each step, reads what is the keyword like open browser, what are the input parameters, calls that function accordingly, and executes it. So the advantage for keyword-driven framework is that all the test cases / scenarios are written in the Excel / data sources. A smart script reads the Excel, understands what to do, and performs on the application in the test. So the big advantages are that even a manual test engineer, manual non-automation, can create, maintain, and execute test cases with zero coding. So it is going to a script-free kind of concept. This is very important thing, this whole concept. Okay. Now, if I try and look at one second, I'm looking at some sample code to show you that. think this is what it is. This is one of them. Here it is. See, very simple. It's the same code. It reads the Excel. Where is that Excel file located? It gets that information and it puts it into test cases and test steps. So there are two different sheets that are created. Then it goes through each row, finds out which test case to execute, gets the information like step, description, ID, keyword, element identification, test data, and the result by default is pass. Then it says, if it is open browser, call this function open browser. What does this do? It goes here and sees open browser is, if browser is Chrome, do this. If browser is Firefox something else, do something else. If IE, do something else. Now, for example, type text is here, right? So you go to that function type text. It takes the element identification and the test data, finds that element, first clears the field in that, then does it. So this way, I can write any test case out here without having any coding knowledge. So let's say this is login, a different version. I can just copy the whole thing, put it here, and I will put an incorrect one. And here, verify text, username incorrect. Or no, your password incorrect. This is the message here. Here, the message that I'm looking is welcome, Karthik. That's the primary difference. You are very easily able to change and write and create new test cases. So for this kind of a framework, let me see if I can show you how the Excel looks like. Okay, so this is for the data-driven framework. So different sets of test data. We selected which ones we want to execute and which ones not. What is the URL of the application? The gender, age, all the values are here. Then this is what is expected, and it gets the result if it is pass or a fail for each of them and puts it back. This was for the data-driven framework. Now for a keyword-driven framework, here are two sheets, team. The first sheet says what are the different test cases. Just one line for each test case, like this test case 1, test case 2, and so on. Out here, user basically selects they want to execute it or not. And test steps, for example, here. Open a browser, navigate URL, confirm login, close browser. See, very similar to what I wrote. So all the information is put here. Then for the next one, same thing, but we're doing something else out here. All right. So this is how we go about, at least this is how it looks when we build these kind of applications, when we build this kind of frameworks. So the primary advantage for this is that I don't have to be an expert automation engineer to do this. I can be absolutely focused on manual testing, but because the power with which this code is run, it's going to do that. Now, when you look at this Excel sheet, the thoughts will come that a lot of times elements will change, new elements will get added and so on. Can't we do something additional to it? And then came the page factory model. They said everything in this sheet we will basically automate. We will actually create another sheet and take this and put that information there. So for every element that you see in the given application, we create an Excel and put it in there for reusability. So for example, this page is there. Now I'll create a new sheet. I'll say, what is the page? If you want, you can put the URL also. Element name, element ID type, and element ID value. So home page, I'll say, okay, URL, let's use this URL for example. element name, type, and value. So this is email address, password, two fields. Okay. So I'll say email address is the name. Then I will recognize it, for example, using one of the methodologies like name. Okay. So I'll say name and value is log. That is what is there. Next one, password, inspect element. Let's say for this we use ID and it's a user underscore pass. ID is user underscore pass. So this element ID type, I'm basically saying what type is it? Is it identifying using name, ID? What are the other ways you can identify elements in a web application using Selenium? Class, link text rather, XPath, CSS. Yes, these are the different ways you can do it. Partial link text, class name, CSS. Yes, correctly. So that is how you can put here. What is the advantage of doing it? Then what I will do is in the actual test case, right? Instead of writing these values here, I will just say like this. Now this smarter code will look here, go back here and pick that value what it wants from here. The reason we're doing it is tomorrow, if any of these applications change, a new developer comes and renames it. If I have, in this example, let us say 100 different test cases that use this email address and password field. If anything changes in the application, how many test cases should I go and change? All the 100. Correct. So the element identification for all the 100 has to be gone and changed. Now with this new model, we'll only change it out here once. And that's it. It will automatically reflect everywhere. So this is to collect all the page objects and put it into one kind of a reusable area. And there is different version of it in page object and page factory, but the concept is the same. Now, that is your page object or page factory model. Okay, disadvantage for this KDF is that complex code takes time to write and implement. Okay, and the fact that test data is hard coded because it's not a data driven framework. When it comes to page factory, it is actually, or page object rather, not even factory, page object model. You parameterize the element identifier for easy maintenance and reusability. It's all about this thing. How easy is it to maintain? How easy is it to reuse and so on? Because a lot of times some developers will come and they'll write some, very, very advanced kind of programming for these. And then let's say they quit the job and go. Suddenly a new developer will come or a new automation engineer, takes a lot of time to understand what was done and gives up and says, let's start from the beginning. This is one of the big reasons automation projects fail, because they have been made very complex, not built for the today's QA world. It's good to know programming always, but it's not everyone's cup of tea, and that is a problem. So these frameworks give some kind of a sustainability, and advantages are clear. It is again ERA, so efficient, reusable, and so on. Disadvantage, nothing much, but the fact that it is not KDF and data-driven framework. So then comes the hybrid model. Hybrid model is very simple. Hybrid model or framework. You combine best of all frameworks into one super performance framework. So that's a clear advantage. Disadvantage is it gets very complex to do something like that. That is a huge disadvantage. All right. So now, team, do you understand the basics of framework, how it is done? And the Selenium training that I'm starting is all about this team. Writing and creating this frameworks at a code level from ground up. And the full 15 hours that you'll spend, 18 hours that you'll spend on that, you will master programming using Java, JUnit, and TestNG or TestNG. You will master building framework and know exactly how it is. It is like, let's say you want to be a mechanic team. If you start with actually seeing how the whole engine is put together, then your learning is more. If you only learn that if this issue happens, you do this and so on, then there is certain issue. All right. So team, again, for those of you who have not watched the earlier video, please do. But those of you looking for in-depth how this are done, you have to look at the whole training because that's where the coding is learned, the main things are coming. And for AACT, whatever we did so far is important team. What industry domains use which framework? I'll tell you team. If time, resources, money is not a criteria, then use a hybrid framework. All right. Else you do what can be done with the constraints. So that is where you kind of do some kind of a break even. All right, you do some kind of a balancing act there. And it is not specific that this industry uses this framework. That concept is not correct at all. But generally speaking, let's say finance industry, a lot to do with numbers. So data is more important. Okay, let us say social media and so on, the users and functionality is there, then keywords. So if there is no problem with time, that okay guys, you have 3 months, go build the framework, and here is go hire top 10 best engineers and get it done, and they fund the project correctly, then you go about doing the most important thing, right? So let's say you have to do some work at your home, and you call a contractor, and the contractor will ask you, so what is your budget? How long do you need? How long? When do you want it? And then they'll give you the option. If they say you don't have budget constraint or money constraint, or go build the best, they will build a White House and give you. But that's not what you can do it, right? So a lot of times it is driven by these resources, details team. Okay. Any questions, team, before I switch to the next most important topic, which is all about the AnyAUT, what it does now. Now it will make sense. Give me a quick minute. I'm going to grab some water, please.
So team, there are a few questions. I'm going to quickly go through them. Can you briefly describe data-driven framework? So guys, that's exactly what I did, right? I think you should go back and watch the video, please. But data-driven framework, like it says, is you take a scenario or a test case and try and repeat that for multiple sets of changing test data and see how the application behaves. Is the application breaking for specific data? Is it performing incorrectly? And so on. So a lot of times application have boundary values or test scenarios of boundary values. So around the boundary value, over the boundary value, incorrect type of data, how do the applications react? That is what you try and test. All right. Does every automation project in a company require developing framework from scratch? No, not at all. Like I said here, right, there are different automation levels. You could just do a simple Selenium IDE code. You can write and run your own custom code in Selenium IDE, or you can just keep hundreds of codes in Selenium WebDriver, or you can do frameworks. It is all dependent on resources, time, and funding that is needed. It's driven by that. How the keyword-driven framework in the AUT, where the element identification can't be done using XPath HTML tags, the AUT written on AJAX. See, okay, always remember this, team. Automation is not about moving 100% of manual to automation. It is not that, team. That's not your target. What can we do it effectively to the largest extent? Now, there is a very tough scenario to automate. The elements are not able to identify, it is changing, so on. So what will happen? Accuracy can go wrong. You may get false errors. Your efficiency is also bad. Why? The amount of effort that was used to create the application of framework was much higher than the output they will get by using it in a period of time. Okay, so you drop it at that time. You don't keep hitting your head for it. That is where always remember your resources are limited. You need to plan it accordingly. Okay, and it's not an overnight thing. Never an overnight thing. It basically, automation evolves over a few months of effort, and you go one stage at a time. You don't just jump into the biggest things. When should we start creating a framework in a test life cycle? Whenever you're ready. Is automation a good thing? First of all, it's the question we should ask, team. When should we start? If automation is good, then there is never a bad time to start a good thing in life. Never a bad time. As long as you have things in place, you can get started. What is the Cucumber? Most of the companies in Toronto asking. Cucumber is a combination of things, team. It is again with the concept of test-driven development. I will talk about it, not Cucumber, but robot framework. You'll understand what it is and what AnyAUT does. Okay. Does the automation engineers create automation frameworks or make use of their principles and apply them? Both. They do both. How do we decide which framework is suitable for a given application? Like I said, right, most of the times it is these factors that is ruling. It is not the application requires this. If no one stops me, I will always build a hybrid framework. If I have time issues, then I will think about the application. Is it got more scenarios? Is data important? Or is it too dynamic? Then build accordingly. The code was in C#. No, the code that I showed you was Java JUnit TestNG. I think it's not even tested. It was mostly JUnit. So testers have to perform the data-driven framework themselves. Yeah, manual testers can do it, and so on. All right, team, we'll take two more questions and then we'll get into the topic. If we can do coding with IDE, why don't we use or record and do coding? Why should we need to write coding separately? Good question, team. Why do we need all this when Selenium IDE can do this, right? Selenium IDE will be able to easily perform any record, run, and it's so easy, right? So I just enter here, it'll capture, I'll enter here, it'll capture, login, there, it'll try and log in, it'll give an error, I'll say it's verified text is there, done. In seconds it's done, correct? Now what happens, team, is what if you want to change this data? You have to go here and change it here. What if you want to run it for multiple browsers? You can only run your Selenium IDE on Firefox. You cannot run it on Chrome and IE. What if you want to repeat the same steps over and over again? Or you want to write any functions, reusable functions and call. Or if you want to say, if this happens, do this. If that happens, do this. That kind of a conditional statements. IDE will fall there. It can't go beyond this. IDE can do very, very basic, and industry does not require basic. It needs very advanced, sophisticated tools. Does the Selenium IDE used in keyword driven nowadays, like as you mentioned earlier, then this is not used? I absolutely didn't understand the question. I'm sorry. I think in my case, the management wanted to do the automation in such case only to impress the client, but the effort is too much. Accuracy is less. Yeah, see, impressing the clients is all about. If you look at how did iPod, Apple sell iPod, just by saying it is so simple and easy to use. It is idiot proof. Even kids can use it. Then they went to iPhone. Then they went to iPad. Kids are able to quickly take it. So technology should not be a deterrent for getting into new things. Technology should make things easy. That is the whole purpose. All right. How the identification of test cases done for automation? I think that's a very, very basic question. Identification of test cases. Oh, sorry. Test case, whether to automate a test case or not, is it? Very simple, team. That's a thumb rule. ERA. Is it too complicated? Will I reuse it? Is it going to be accurate? Efficiency, reusability, accuracy. You need to analyze that. Are there jobs for entry-level automation testers in the market? Absolutely. Absolutely. But the easier it is for the job, the more competition you have, team. And that's the huge challenge. Okay, team, we are left with 15 minutes. I want to quickly give you what AnyAUT does. Or maybe I'll just talk about robot framework, what it did. Okay. And then I can talk about AnyAUT. Robot framework is an open source tool, team. It is built for anyone to use for free, and you basically talk about how to write advanced test case in a very simple manner. And they use a concept called acceptance test driven development. What is acceptance test? User acceptance test. Users at the end want to write code like what I showed you, like this. Open browser, enter username, enter password, click login, confirm, and so on. They want it to be very simple. So how can we combine the power of Selenium with this kind of easy way of writing? So they came up and they said that let's talk about robot framework. In this, if you look at the simple code, it looks like this, team. There's a settings page like documentation and if it uses any resource. And then there are test cases written in text files. These are actually Python programs. But the way it is done, you save it as .rob file or .robot files. But the way it is done is you write test case and you write the English for it. These are all predefined. Some of these are predefined functions or user-defined functions. Like either we create them as reusable components or they're already there. So open browser to login page, input username demo, input password mode, submit credentials, welcome page should be open, finally close browser. As simple as the one we showed in the Excel is done in a text file in a very simple manner. And then it goes a little bit more advanced with a lot of libraries, standard, external and other. So there are built-in libraries, there are libraries that will help you talk with remote code and remote systems, XML files, screenshots, date and time, all these libraries are there with it. And then if you go here and look at the videos, it will tell you exactly how you should do. And it was a great framework for me to look at it, team. It was very simple, absolutely easy. But there was still one issue, team. The issue was primarily because you still have to install Python, you have to install robot framework, you have to do a bunch of setups to get started. And it was not very easy for me when I tried to do it. And I felt it is going to be a little bit complex for the end users. this is still built with developer in mind. It was not built with a non-developer QA engineer in mind. It was not. And that is where it kind of has a little challenge that I felt. So what we did is we said, why can't we do it in a much more simpler fashion? Much more easier, user friendly. And then at the very beginning, we started with an Excel sheet. And there are a bunch of Excel sheets. I'm going to show you. The first one is this kind of a sheet called Application and Test Suite, where I have details about the application that I can enter. I have different modules listed for that application, and each module is like a functional piece. And within each module, we have test cases that are created and linked with the modules. Then we have test steps for each test case that is linked with a test case. For each test case, what we did is we have the description. It is low level keyword, high level keyword, low level keyword, high level keyword is a concept I'll explain to you, team. It will be another session for that. But the same exact thing like I was showing you. There is a keyword column which talks about what is it that the user wants to do. Then there is details about the element. Element, either you enter the value or it is parameterized. So for example, when it says admin underscore login underscore username, it will go to this sheet, search for that specific field, get the actual XPath or whatever other ways to identify and fill it out here. And similarly, there are test data. Either you enter actual test data or you enter a variable name for it. For example, admin underscore username. So it goes to test data. It sees where is admin underscore username and gets that value. And finally, it has information on if there's any output coming out, if the result is pass or fail, if error occurred, what is the error? If error occurred, take a screenshot and how much time it took. And what this does is we built a core engine. That core engine will run on this Excel and it will come up with finally a result file. And this is the one you need to master, team. Now this is the one that you're gonna do the project on, how to enter and maintain this Excel and how to do it, look at the results. So after we select, we only get to select a few sets of test data, test cases. I'll tell you this and I'll go in deep in the next session for this. I'm giving you a quick intro on this. So we have test run. In this, we say which modules we want to execute, what test cases are ready for execution for this specific current run, what test data we will use for each of them, either one set or multiple set. So this framework has combined the data-driven, keyword-driven, and page factory or page object model into one framework. And it is all put into an Excel. So that is the core engine. Now, how do we maintain this? We have to maintain it in the Excel sheet, right? All this information. So when we maintain it in Excel sheet, there is too much go to this tab, enter it here, come back to this tab. Manual errors can happen and it is not easy to always maintain in Excel. So we put a web UI in the front and this is the dev version that I'm showing you. How many of you seen this earlier, team? A demo on this? Do I have the audience with me? Okay, looks like not many of you. Okay, so before that, let me show you the website itself, what it does. So AnyAUT.com is the home page. The app is not yet linked to it because the beta version we're still working on it. We're testing it out. A lot of features are being incorporated. So the whole purpose is how can we test with ease? How can we test at a good speed? And how can we combine the power of AnyAUT, Selenium and Java? That is what it basically says. And it talks about how we use Selenium WebDriver with Java and TestNG to do cross-browser functional tests for more focused on regression and functional testing. Okay, we talked about hybrid framework and what it combines together into one integrated solution. We're also looking at to be an idiot-proof UX. What it means is it should be simple enough for the end user to understand and work with. It should not be very complicated. And then finally, how do we get good reports? This is what this framework is intending to do. And I'll show you the UI quickly. So this is the first starting page team. A user can sign up and enter all the details about themselves. So they can create a free account. Then the user can log in, or the forgot password functionality also is there. Once the user logs in, he or she can see at the initial dashboard level what are the different modules, how many test cases, test steps and so on are created. They can go and instead of doing the changes in the Excel out here, they can maintain everything in this web UI. So application details are in this tab, modules we enter here, test cases we can enter here or edit them here, and we can also write the test steps here. So if I'm creating a new test step, for example, there is this employer TC001, there's open browser, click login, close browser, verify login page, right? Let me sort this. So I'm now sorting it by step. So I want to enter a new one step here. Before click login, let's say I want to enter a username. So here I select the module, which is employer, the test case, which is the test case 001. ID is going to be, this is going to be second step. And then step description will be enter username. And there is concept of low level and high level keyword. I'll explain this to you. And here I'm going to select, it's going to type text. So type text will help the user to type a text into edit field. Then we say to identify the element, I can either select something or I can enter it here or I can create a reusable one. And once we do this, let me enter something here. ID equals name. All right. And value, let's say I'll put as admin. And say add test step. The test step will get added. But if you see, I put it in between. So I go change the other ones. So this becomes 3. Then 3. 3 becomes 4. 4 becomes 5. Okay. This becomes 4. I'm just inserting a new step in between. And this is the very beginning of a team. As we go on, it will improve and a lot of changes will come to it. So now sort it again. So a new step has been entered this way. You can create the entire element map, reusable repository here, test data here, high level keywords, low level keywords. And this is the first module where we set up the test. Second module is where we choose which tests we want to run, which test cases. And for each test case, you can select the test data for it. So let's say I want to do this. Then I say I want this test data for this and this test data for this or multiple ones for this, and just save this and say kk underscore demo underscore 17th March. So I saved this. Did it get saved? I think so. And then I go to the next tab, test run. This is 7th March. Where is the new one? I think I hit enter. It didn't come here. Or next. Previous one, only one is there. So, and then I can choose which one I want. It will download that specific Excel. It will look similar to this. And finally, we get the test results. All right. So all this is done without any need of coding. and the Selenium WebDriver from there, with the click of a button, it's going to take and execute everything onto the browser stream. Which browsers you want to run, if you want to do parallel test runs, all of that information is maintained and put here. So it is mimicking like a simple test management tool where all your details about your application, the scenarios and so on, you're maintaining it and quickly able to get to automation. So we will go detail and we'll create a sample out here in the next session, and I will then give you the exercise to start doing it at your end. So at the end, when we complete the execution, you will see a report coming up like this. This talks about things like how many tests we have executed or steps, how many failed, how many passed, what went on with it, which environment did we execute. And then I can go to individual test case, see what happened for each of the steps, how long it took, and what, if you want, you can also capture screenshots. And by default, if a step fails for any reason, it will capture the screenshot and it will link it to that. This is what it is doing at a high level team. Again, it's like 10,000 feet level. Once I get a little bit more deep in the next class, I'll be able to share the complete details onto it. Yeah, thank you, team. I'm excited about it. It's been a dream of mine for the last 5-6 years, but it has to fall into place. Believe me, to do this, I was looking for a great development team and vendor, and I fought hard across the world to find vendors who can help me develop my websites and so on. But every 6 months, I had an issue. So I said, you know what? I will build my own company, and I created atomic77.com about 2 years back. And with this company, we are now able to create some amazing world-class applications, designs, branding, and all these things with to do with web apps, mobile apps, and so on. So because of Atomic 77, right now, AnyAUT is possible because we have that capability. So the web front end is being developed by Atomic 77, and the core engine, which is Selenium WebDriver, Java Test Engine, is being done by a team which I call as AnyAUT Core team, and they started just like you started a few months back, and they are the ones who are doing it. So very proud of each and every member who's been contributing to it, and we could do this very easily. It was not easy, but we had challenges. But just that excitement to work and write that code is what made all this happen. And the code, the actual code of it, right? The way it is. Where did I put that code? This code, if you get to a chance to do the certified developer, then you know each and every line of this code. So for example, this setup test run.java is one code. All right, this is not in the best format for you to see, team, but the entire team has contributed to delivering this. Heavy sets of coding, heavy sets of what happens if we do this, what happens if we do that, and so on. How does it look, team? The first glimpse of it, and you believe me now that why I needed to teach all this before I can get here. If I just show you AnyAUT, you will not be able to capture a lot of things. So you need to know testing. We need to know frameworks, automation basics, how Selenium IDE works, and then this thing makes sense. Yes, this is done by the JPACT members team. JPACT and Selenium trainees. Awesome and confusing, awesome. We should make it popular in Toronto. Absolutely. So team, let me be very honest. I had a vision to build this under my company Workasa Inc. And I'm going to the Selenium conference in Austin that I've been talking about. And so my direction was towards mid of this year, May, June, I would look at someone to invest into this so I can take it to a much larger extent. But even without much, I'm getting some investors talking to me already. So this week I spent 3 hours with an investor talking about what it does and the vision of the company and where I'm trying to take it. They're very keen to put money, but I'm searching for the right investor because it's not always about money. If you have the right vision, then we can go in the right direction. So to really master this team, you need some hands-on expertise. You need to really sit down and work on it. And I'm going to guide you with a sample project from start to end, and then you will take it and you will do it at your end. That will be your real project. So now let us say we're developing a new application in Atomic 77. I will say, team, please test this application using AnyAUT. That is how you implement a project. You get that onto your resume and you are getting the certification going. All right. Now you understand my intent. When I started this training, I did have a reason for it. I knew exactly what I did, I was doing. Because it is very important to have a good team of people that will continue to take this forward. At the same time, this knowledge this whole program is giving should be valuable, should be a good stepping stone. Now you know exactly what you want to learn, where you want to go, what you want can become. Someone said that I'm putting the automation engineers out of work and that's bad of me. I don't think it's going to happen that way, team. I don't think so. But this is what will happen. Okay. A client will say that, hey, this is fine, but can you customize this framework for my project? Oh, yes, sure. So we'll take the concept, we'll write a custom framework. If you're an AnyAUT certified developer, you can do it because you're master of Selenium, Java, AnyAUT, frameworks, you know it all. So creating, if you are an AACT, you're far superior than a Selenium developer. For the application to test, will we get requirements? So the typical requirement is a functional walkthrough team of what it is supposed to be doing. Some of this have documented requirements also, which you can take and write scenarios based on. Can you have the power to replace Selenium eventually? I don't think, because we still use Selenium as the base. But I'm going to be meeting a lot of these co-founders of Selenium, the contributors to it, and talk about this concept, get some advice. How many of you guys know Sauce Labs? This company has been there for a few years now, and they are doing something very similar. They have, like, AnyAUT is like a baby and this is like a mothership. They've got this built-in thing where users can record and write the tests directly into this application and it runs it on the cloud. So I met the Sauce Labs senior management a couple of weeks back when I was in San Francisco and showed them this demo. They could very quickly understand what it is. They were very excited to see this. And so they're going to introduce me to a lot of people in this conference. So look at this team, how they do automated test builds and so on. Of course, this is like a 300, 400 people company. We are much more smaller with a clear vision. Hopefully once we go, then version 1, version 2 and so on, we'll have many more features to it. So look at Sauce Labs team. This is a good company to follow. And if you are an expert Selenium developer, they may look at, they constantly have job requirements that keep coming. Come on, what happened here? Trying to put this in chat. All right, everyone. Let's continue on Monday. So we'll take it from here. We'll go deeper. I will give you a detailed walkthrough of how we set it up at an Excel level and at the UI level. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back on Monday. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.